Hi, my name is Josh Scarborough. I'm going to be doing a report on the book Until I Am Free, Fannie Lou Hamer's Enduring Message to America, written by Dr. Keisha N. Blain, who is a associate professor of history at the University of Pittsburgh. She is the president of the African American Intellectual History Society and a columnist for MSNBC. Author of multi-prize winning books, Set the World on Fire, Black Nationalist Women, and The Global Struggle for Freedom, amongst a couple of other books. She came to know about Fannie Lou Hamer through a class that she took at a university and just became really interested in her, as she had not known about her prior to that class. And that got her really started on researching her and finding out more about her and about her life and legacy and her messages and how those tie to America today. So that is who Dr. Blain is and a little bit about her background. This book was written about Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer was a civil rights movement leader, and she gave many speeches. She was highly influential, even though a lot of people, including myself, don't know a lot about her background. So she was involved in the civil rights movement in America during the 1960s and 70s and trying to get Black people out to vote, because the way that she came to know to get involved in the civil rights movement was she did not know that she could vote until she went to a student nonviolent coordinating committee meeting at a church, and then that got her involved in the civil rights movement. And she just went from there and started becoming super involved. She actually lost her job as a sharecropper due to registering to vote. So she kind of didn't really have another choice, but that's what got her involved. So the storyline of the book is Fannie Lou Hamer's life. And Dr. Blain also tries to tie it into current context. A lot of the chapters begin with current events, like the Black Lives Matter movement, certain speeches that were given at at the United Nations, and Kamala Harris being inducted as vice president and her speech. So those are kind of the contexts of when Dr. Blain wrote the book. And then the context of the book is during the civil rights movement, and especially focused on Fannie Lou Hamer. So Dr. Blain gives a lot of information about Fannie Lou Hamer's life, her growing up. She grew up very poor. She was one of 20 children. Her parents were sharecroppers, so they were very poor growing up. She didn't have a lot, and even as she grew older, she was also a sharecropper. She only had an education up until about the age of 6 or so she was not highly educated, unlike many of the people in the civil rights movement. She did not have a great education, but she really loved to read. She especially loved to read scripture. She was a very strong Christian. She had a very strong Christian belief in scripture, and that's really a lot of what she based her speeches and her life on. And to me, that is some of the book's highlights is on Fannie Lou Hamer's Christian faith. Dr. Blain really shone a light on that and made it very apparent that her faith was very important to her life and to her work. And as a Christian myself, I just found that very, very inspiring and very touching, and really helped me know that I too can have my Christian faith be a part of my work and my life, and really stand up for it and tell others about Jesus and his teachings and not shy away from that. I really like too that Dr. Blain used a lot of passages from Fannie Lou's speeches. So just as an example, I will read the one from the introduction, which I also believe is where she got the title from, which Fannie Lou Hamer had said, "We have a long fight, and this fight is not mine alone, but you are not free whether you are white or black until I am free, because no man is an island to himself. And until I'm free in Mississippi, you are not free in Washington. You are not free in New York." So that's just one of the quotes that Dr. Blaine uses in her book. She starts every chapter with a quote from Fannie Lou Hamer. So I really like that. I like that she used those quotes to start the chapter and kind of built also on those quotes from Fannie Lou Hamer, and talked more about like kind of what those messages, what those quotes meant. So text shortcomings, silences, or omissions. I think the shortcomings of the book is it's a relatively short book, so of course we can't know every single thing that Fannie Lou Hamer did. I think it was a really good book. It was very interesting. I didn't know anything about Fannie Lou Hamer before I read this book, so I really liked that aspect of it. But I also do feel like Dr. Blaine had a bit of an agenda, and she really wanted to paint Fannie Lou Hamer as almost a saint and practically perfect, and she didn't really talk a lot about any of her failures or shortcomings or anything like that. So I think those were some of the silences or omissions and some of the shortcomings, but I think overall it was a really excellent book. So, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the chapters begin with current events like the Black Lives Matter, like the speech that was given at the United Nations, like Kamala Harris's induction as the vice president with President Biden. And I think Dr. Blaine did a really good job of tying those events into Fannie Lou Hamer's messages. And she did a great job of tying those into the quotes, like I mentioned earlier. So I think Fannie Lou Hamer's messages really do tie into what we've been experiencing in America with all the police shootings and violence and riots and everything like that. We can learn a lot from Fannie Lou Hamer, and just to be equal and see others as equal and reach out to the poor and oppressed, and just do a better job of being justice-minded and being equality-minded and seeing others greater than ourselves. So, alternative perspectives, I think there probably could be alternative perspectives. If somebody else read this book or read another book about Fannie Lou Hamer, they could come to very different conclusions if they have a different mindset than Dr. Blaine or a different upbringing, just like any other book. So there can always be alternative perspectives on any book that anybody reads, because we're all different. So those are, anytime you read a book, especially a book like this, you should keep that in mind. And also keep in mind, like I said, I felt like Dr. Blaine had a little bit of an agenda and her own perspective and what she really wanted people to get from this book. So, does the book address themes of change or continuity over time? Yes, it addressed, like I said, the current events, Black Lives Matters, all the police shootings and violence and things like that. It also discussed the civil rights movement, which of course changed America, and changed how people can vote, how people can register to vote, and just gave more equality to Black people, to African Americans. I think the impact of the work is kind of as yet to be decided. It changed me a little bit, as, like I said, I didn't know a lot about Fannie Lou Hamer. Kind of gave me more empathy for her and for other people like her who were poor, uneducated, but still have made a significant impact on historical events. So that's how it changed me, and it did give me a different perspective on Black lives and on African American struggles and the civil rights movement and how women have impacted that movement, and how a lot of them got kind of shunted to the side or got put into the shadows because they got so overshadowed by the men in there, like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or Al Singleton or John Lewis or whomever, that had a lot more light shined on them. So I thought that was really important. I don't think it turned the tide of a conflict necessarily, at least not as of yet. Maybe if more people can read this book, then it can and will. But again, that's kind of as yet to be determined. It's a relatively small book. I think it was written, I don't think it was necessarily geared towards Black people or African Americans, but I do think that those will be the kinds of people who will tend to read it more often than Caucasians, unfortunately, which I think that, being a Caucasian myself, I think that we definitely should. So again, my name is Josh Scarborough. This is a video for my Women's History course at Clayton State University. Thanks.